Hey everybody, and welcome to a conversation with Dak Mills. How you doing today, Dak?
I'm doing great, Bob. How are you doing?
I'm good. I actually talked to you not too long ago, and I'm trying to remember what was our topic on that one.
I think it was just the most random things we're talking about. We talked a little bit about ideas, a little bit about politics and just life in general. We kept it nice and breezy, but I feel like
Yeah,
a good conversation overall. We're talking about a lot of good stuff.
yeah. I was. This may be very, very similar.
Yeah.
So, but I talked to Dak, and the funny thing is, this is funny about these things. I'm like, I remember it being incredibly pleasant and delightful, and then I'm like, well, what did we talk about? And I'm like, oh,
I think that's a good
I,
thing. It's
I
nice
think
to-
I think we went all over the place.
I think we did.
So, so one of the things I always like to ask folks here is, you know, what inspired you to decide to, you know, basically talk on the internet, as it were, to do a show?
Yeah. For me, it was that I feel like, it's a very vast open space. Everyone has an opinion, everyone has, a chance to voice their opinions. I think for me, it was more, I felt there was a lot of misinformation out there in the world, which I feel like is always a thing. And
Hmm.
I always love to be able to be the voice of reasoning. I've been there in my friends, I've been there in my life, and I've been there in most of my relationships. So I thought on a podcast platform, it'd be great to have these great conversations that I was already having in my daily life with people, and
Hmm.
I kind of take that to the next level and start a podcast. And I was like, okay, this would be great to do that. And got a chance to talk about a lot of great topics and meet interesting people. But I also realized it's very daunting. It's a lot of work, on top of it. But I enjoyed it. I think when you do something you enjoy, it's the saying is always it's never really work. So yeah, I just really want to have open conversations with people and just have open dialogue, and that's kind of the reason I started my podcast.
That's interesting. Now, do you think that your friends and so forth would say, you know what, Dak is the voice of reason, or do you think anybody would push back on that?
I don't think so. I think to this day, I don't want to toot my own horn. People still find it that I think that I'm their therapist, and so they kind of just I'll ask a question like, "Oh, how's your day going? Or what's going on in your life?" And I normally check in on my friends from time to time, and then next thing you know, I get a slew of 15, 20 minutes later of what's going on, and I'm just like, "Oh, you're so easy to talk to," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, thanks." I was like, "I just asked how your day
Well,
was going. I didn't know oh this was going on." So I would say I'm probably an easy person to listen and talk to, but I do think I give good advice. Probably not, I don't take my own good advice sometimes, but I do think I give good advice to the point of like, have people just kind of rethink things and realize certain mistakes they're making or realize that you're just not really helping yourself by doing certain things, and keeping it nice and fresh and light and not too mean. I think sometimes you can be a little too mean and you can be a little hurtful. So you have to learn to reel it back sometimes.
so there's no tough love Dak. There's just
Oh, there is.
smooth and easy Dak.
It's only for certain people that comes out. But
Ah, okay.
no, for the most part, I keep it kind of nice in general, and I try to say, listen, I'm a little older, and I've kind of been there. A lot of my friends are a little younger than me, and I'm just kind of like, you're gonna go through these growing pains in life, and just make sure you make the right decisions. You're gonna learn one way or another. So I can't tell you not to do something because you're gonna probably want to do it anyway. But
That's
that's,
yeah. It's amazing how you know how much good advice goes unheeded.
absolutely.
Um, but that's one of the things you have to like about being human is the fact that you can hear something that's probably the best thing for you and decide, you know what, I'm not going to do that.
I think a lot of times the key time I think it happens a lot is in relationships, and I have a lot of friends in good relationships and some very upheaval relationships, and I just kind of like I don't understand it. Once again, I'm not living your life; it's your life. You do what
Mhm.
you want to do, but I'm also like you gotta start looking at your patterns of your dating life and realize it's not always the other person. It could be you sometimes.
That's a little harsh.
So it
That,
comes up with
that's
certain
a
people.
that's a little harsh.
It comes up with certain people. But I mean, I think in reality, it's like, it's almost like you said, it's like you just kind of, I'm not going to beat a dead horse over it, but it's almost like you're going to keep doing what you do. I can't really change that about your scenario.
Right.
But Also, I'm not gonna sit up here and just let you get off scot free and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna do." Okay, well, you've done this before. I mean,
the,
same
they should
outcome.
call you the director. They should call you the director. You're the director of the
True.
drama club, right there.
Might not be wrong, but my life as a reality show would be very interesting. Let's put it that way.
You're helping. You're keeping things on task for the drama club out there.
Yeah.
So you said, okay, I'm gonna put these things out there on the internet and so forth. And
Sure.
is there anything that you're wanting to get? I mean, you're having the experiences, right? I think that's one of the key
Mhm.
things about all this. And I think the interesting thing about that is that these would be we've as a society perhaps we've taken these experiences that happened in public
Yeah.
before and now made them public, which is kind of
Mhm.
a weird kind of flip on language, as well as the fact that we're in an internet culture now, right? So you may have met these people like at a restaurant or wherever, right, in your daily life, and had these conversations because you were you know kind of brought together for various reasons. But now it becomes a little more structured, and then it's presented to where not only can the people around you listen to you, but other people in disparate, all over the world potentially could listen to you like we're doing now. So the it I find that fascinating just in thinking about it. Is I wonder why, what is the trigger for that? Because I mean, everybody seems to be in tune with it right now. In the past, that may, it may have made people terrified to think, oh,
Sure.
this conversation is going to be out there for anyone who wants to hear it at the click of a button.
Yeah, I think for me is, or my understanding, or what I think my ideology on it is reality TV changed all of this. When we had the opening of reality TV, people had a fascination. I'll be the first to say I do because I love my housewives. I'll be the first to be up in that 24/7.
Hmm.
And I think when that kind of culture came into our world, it was more of like I could relate to these people. These are people I either think are messy or crazy or just fun or entertaining to watch, and realize that that's probably some of the stuff you probably do on a daily basis. So when people get on a podcast or they listen to a podcast, I have certain podcasts I listen to. A lot of mine mostly are very political, but mostly artists and writers, directors. I love entertainment. Uh,
Hmm.
it's you're getting an insight into their lives and the process of certain things. Like for me, the example I use for like I listen to, um, uh, oh god, wow, I'm looking on a freaking name right now. Matt Shepard's podcast.
Hmm.
And so his is really good because he just talks with a lot of celebrities and people, and they talk about just the process of like getting to know one another, how their working process is when it comes to movies, and he gets with directors and different things. And so it's things that like you don't feel alone. I think
Hmm.
sometimes people feel like they're just alone in their process of feeling like I think I'm the only person that's going through this, but then they hear something like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only person. And that makes people feel a little more special in a way that they don't feel so alone. I think in a level, it's it's a it's a connectivity thing. It's a
Hmm.
feeling connected to the world in a way and not feeling so alone. But it does get tough sometimes because like you don't want to use certain people's names, and so you're kind of like, I sometimes don't want to talk about my ex, and I don't want to use his name per se. But it's
Hmm.
like I was like certain situations. But I think people who know who it is, they know who it is regardless. But I never try to blast anyone. I never try to say, "Oh well, you're so and so," and blah blah blah, this and that. I never try to do that. I never try to do that.
Hmm.
So, but it's the connectivity people have with that, and I think that is why it becomes so popular. People are having these avenues to talk and feel heard and seen. That's the main issue we have a lot in our country, and it's just in society in general. People don't feel heard and seen, and sadly, that can be a bad thing for some people. It could be a good thing for others. So it's a kind of a it can go any direction, on that.
Yeah. Do you think there was a time, like in the recent past, I'm talking within the last, like, 20 years or whatever, that there was a point where we American society specifically became disconnected, and we all kind of went to our corners, and
Mhm.
that's the reason why this is happening? Or do you think that
I
this has just
believe
been a
so.
slow progression?
No, I think, I mean, you look back some of the daunting times of the early, well, it's the last 20 years. So what is that? The early 2000s,
2000s, yeah.
before 9/11. I'm probably going way back thinking in my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was kind of the way things kind of were. You work, you go home, you meet your family, you have family disputes, or take trips or travel, the case may be. But it was never nothing that was so exposed. You
Hmm.
know, but back to my early statement, I just feel like reality TV just opened that door, because otherwise you just go home and watch a sitcom or a TV show, and that was your connectivity to something outside that world. But I think it also depends on where you grew up too. I think
Hmm.
I grew up on the very liberal eliteness of California. So,
Hmm.
and I think people who grew up maybe in the Midwest in certain aspects had different levels of work and play and how they
Hmm.
in their lives. So I think it's a lot of those factors went into that. But yeah, I think you're right. It's just kind of just you go to work, come home, family, and kind of rinse, repeat, and do it again.
It's interesting that when you said that. So, you said basically that when you got home, you may watch television, and then that was your point of connectivity.
Sure.
So, with the internet opening up, basically, I think you hit upon something there in the sense that now that people are away from broadcasting, right, which is one point to multiple people, now you
Mm-hmm.
have multiple points, and so it's much more of an interactive kind of a situation. And it went from like Baskin Robbins 31 flavors to Baskin Robbins a million and plus flavors, because there's so much more content for people to take advantage of, because you don't have to for lack of a better example, Friends isn't the touch point now, right? You don't have to look at that and say, and try to relate to that,
Yeah.
because that may have nothing to do with your world. But that was kind of the most popular thing in that, in the
Absolutely.
late 90s and so forth. And and you were kind of forced into it in a way.
Yep.
And now you're not. I mean, you can do whatever you want. And that's interesting though. I think maybe you hit upon the thing, that is that we have been given almost an infinite amount of choice and the ability to make those choices now, whereas before we didn't. I mean,
No. No.
we thought cable was expansive with 500 channels, but
Right.
that's nothing compared to now.
No, and you're right. You touched on a part of the internet. It's almost, oh goodness, I'm showing my age. I remember when YouTube came out, the very
Yeah.
first iterations of it. It was kind of like I remember being in my dorm and meeting a bunch of my roommates and friends just watching the most dumbest videos in the world,
Yeah.
hours doing that. And to this day, I'm not gonna lie, I still go back to YouTube and watch certain things, or videos of people traveling in cases. But the internet has opened that door to another level of entertainment, where it's like you have these different platforms. Shows like yourself and other shows are on YouTube, and people have the
Hmm.
outlet to kind of connect with people. Once again, it's a good or bad thing. I mean, what people don't realize, the internet was really made for the government. They don't really remember that.
Right. Yeah. DARPA, right? DARPA,
Yeah,
or yeah,
years
DARPA.
ago, and so they couldn't handle it, so they just gave it to the world. And so
Well,
all of
maybe
them,
they couldn't contain it. I mean,
they probably couldn't. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
there's so much wealth of information. It could be great. It could be great to have resources to have out there and do things, but it's also could be deadly to the point of the dark web and things that can happen and things that could be taken a mystery, or people, which I go back to my way earlier statement of that people having misinformation. Well, I read on
Mhm.
the internet about this. I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't mean it's true. Anyone's putting it
Right.
out there. That's fine, and that's your opinion, but doesn't mean it's always true. So you got to be very vigilant when you're getting information. Or have some good, reliable resources when doing that.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. It's made, there at this point there is no source, right? So I
Yeah.
mean, the used to be you'd have these very trusted, sources for information, and I think what it's done is kind of scrambled that a bit. I mean, because as we've found out, even the media now is
Mhm.
not even trustworthy. The mainstream media, they say all kinds of stuff that don't
I mean, and that was a
that's
place
not
where you
real.
go to like get information. I mean, I still watch the news. I don't, it is what it is. I don't fully always believe everything that's out there, but it's a form
Mhm.
of information. I still will always like, okay, I heard about that, but let me go back and research for myself. But yeah, you're totally right. The media was supposed to be our guarded sanction for kind of keeping our checks and balances as the unquote fourth house of our government in the U.S. at least. And
Right.
now it's kind of just haywire and just does whatever the fuck they want it. I'm sorry. Well, they do what the hell they want to do. I
Yeah,
just
it is. It's wild to think that, I think my parents would have never um they would never think that the media would lie to them.
of course. No,
And yet now we have media that does lie to people essentially because they align themselves in with a certain bent or whatever, and they are telling well, let's not call them lies, but let's call them half truths. So they mention something that may be true and then something that may be a little fuzzy, but they put them together.
yeah.
And so then that way when they put them together you're like, oh, true, and then you just buy the rest of it because the true statement's at the front.
And it's also
And
biased. It's very biased. It's this point
yeah,
where we're having to pick a side, and that's not fair
yeah,
to
and they were never they're not if you have studied media at all, the idea behind it is that they're supposed to be unbiased. They're supposed to just basically present
Yep.
what the facts that are out there in the world, and there's no this is what happened. Like,
Mm-hmm.
well, for instance, Dak was on a show and the fire department went by. That's it, right? Because there was a siren in
Yeah.
the background.
Yeah. No, that's
but
true.
but that's it. That's what happened. Do we know that it burnt down? Something burnt down. We have no idea. We just know the siren went by, and that's it. But now they delve into, why are there so many sirens in the city? And
What's going
it,
on? What espionage is
it's a
happening?
psyop on the people of the city.
Yes, that's so true.
It's nutty that this is happening, but the other thing I think, and I'm sorry I went off onto a little tangent there, but the other thing I think is that the internet is growing up because you mentioned YouTube and watching YouTube at the beginning. That would have been around 2005
Correct.
when YouTube came out. Which I have a slight little story that I'll divert onto. So when YouTube came out, they used to have at the very, very beginning, they used to have featured videos. And I'm so angry that my brother got a featured video back then, and I never could because I was on it like right away,
Right.
and because he was on a boat in the ocean while they were demolishing a building, and he
Oh.
did a phone video from like a flip phone of
Mhm.
this building collapsing,
Oh
and it
wow.
made the front page of YouTube back in 2005. And I happened to, I was interested, and so I happened to be watching it. I couldn't believe that he made it on the front page back then. I was so angry with him. I'm like, I've been trying to get something on this stupid YouTube, and here you
Right.
go out with your stupid flip phone and get it on the front page. Anyway, but the point of that is, and we're siblings, so this is all part of the process. But the but the funny thing is I think now, 20 years on almost, the internet is growing up. And
Absolutely.
so we're having these kind of discussions about things as opposed to just seeing buildings blow up or seeing people, although there's still a lot of people falling down videos on the internet. I
Mhm.
think though that the tide is turning to where there's much more constructive elements to it than there have been in the past.
Yeah. I think it comes to it's a little bit of checks and balances. I mean, we still have copyright laws. We have certain sanctions for those things, and I think there's things that suitable for children, not suitable for children.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have certain limitations when it comes to that because you don't want to have everything out there. Obviously, sex or
Right.
dark web things. Like you don't want to influence people, but also you don't want to grotesque or freak people out at the same time. I mean, it goes back to what we talked about with media before. It's like it's hard. I mean, not to get too political, we talk about the things that are happening in the Middle East and things that are happening over there. It's like you're getting so many different waves of information and what's really happening, and it's like where like, you gotta. I always tell people you gotta inform yourself. You can't lean on your media for everything. Of course, it's there for you. Of course, you get the information for you, but you have to get out there and really understand for yourself and not jump on a bandwagon. And going back to celebritism and celebrities, like people are like, oh, well, so and so supports so and so, and I'm not going to do this. I'm like, but okay, that's their choice. Like, doesn't mean you have to like. First off, actors are actors. I don't know why people seem to think that life of like. I mean, I think they're amazing. They're great. Like I said, I love entertainment. I grew up in entertainment. I worked in entertainment. But I don't think there's a lifeline of life. Like I don't think even they take themselves that serious. I mean, some of them probably do, narcissists, but for the most part, they don't take themselves seriously. And their opinions is their opinions. I watch you for a great show. You're doing a great character you play. I can give two shits what you do in your personal life. Like that's,
right. That's what makes you an expert.
Right?
Right?
Committing murder or something with kids or doing something crazy. Then yeah, but like other than that, I don't care what you do. I'm watching you for entertainment aspect of what you bring to this character in this TV show. What you do in your life, that's great. That's awesome. But I don't really care. But we get so celestial side. We want to know everything about this person. It's like they just play a character on TV. What makes you think you know anything about their lives?
Well, and I mean the funny thing is, and I'm trying to think if I have examples, but I've encountered this to where some people in entertainment are incredibly interesting people and lead a very, very rich, full life in the background. And some people are the most vapid, shallow people. and
I met some of them. Yep, I know.
and they don't really even, I mean, their life is basically guided by being a celebrity as opposed to being guided by being themselves. But I mean, the same could be said about everybody. It's not like we're just picking on celebrities at the moment. But
there's the people that you can relate to the most. But then you got your Aunt Margaret or your Uncle Joe who says some crazy shit, and you're like, I know. But everyone has them for their family, So everyone wants to feel important. You always have that one. Some people always do. They won't admit it. But they have that one friend who just does the most outrageous, stupid shit, and you're just like, why am I friends with you? And then it's not like, okay, are you trying to prove something to yourself? Are you trying to be alpha? Are you trying to, puff your chest and make something more of yourself because you're already insecure about the fact that you're less of a person without doing this? You know what I mean? Like those are things that you're just kind of like observing. You're like, okay, whatever, but you don't need to do that. I mean, there's a study that just came out. I don't know if you read this, Bob, that says, and I'm kind of a fitness person, so I get back into fitness and learn. It said people who are into fitness are the most, not vapid, but the most insecure people in the world. I'm like,
oh really?
Yeah. I was like,
I would have not thought that.
Right. Like, they're promoting health and fitness and wellness, but studies have shown they're the most insecure and kind of just not vapid, but like almost just like are not self-aware themselves. And I'm like, that's interesting to figure out. But from a psychological point of view, it kind of makes sense in a way. If you're posting some of these shirtless selfies, it's two reasons why you're doing that. But most likely, why are you really doing it? One, for clout. The second is because you're insecure about something. You want to look better at something.
I get. Yeah, but I find that interesting because the other side of that coin is that you have folks who are involved in that are incredibly motivated people, because that to me, that, I mean, maybe I'm not in the category, but to me, it's like you really have to be dedicated to do some of that, because I mean, how many people, the relatable thing to say is, I really should work out, but I don't do it. And that's what everybody says. They're like, we all have the time. I mean, we say we don't have the time, but the reality is that we can make the time. We would just, we had to cut out watching television or something, but we can make the time.
But here's the thing: they'll even tell you that. They'll say you can still watch TV while you're on the treadmill. So
that's true. Exactly.
It's a different way of how they approach it. But also think about this, Bob. They have to maintain that certain physique or that persona for a very long time, which goes back to how certain actors are or certain people. you have to maintain a certain amount. I mean, I've actually talked to my cousin about it. He's a fitness enthusiast, and
Hmm.
like, if he loses like a certain shred of like muscle, he goes insane. But I'm like,
Mm.
I get it. You have a routine you're used to and what you work on, but then also it's okay to change those things. But for some of them, it's very hard to not have that, and then they have to
Yeah.
persona to keep up with the image they put out there. And if they don't, then their followers lack. And then this goes back to social media, which takes me to another tangent of how that could be a good or bad thing because it takes you in this whole, oh
Well,
my God, I don't have followers. Oh God, something's wrong with me. And I'm like, who gives a fucking flying shit?
well, that's true. So yeah, we have this horrible feedback loop now in place, I would say, with social media. So, while I do that, I'm gonna put your Instagram up just to be
That's what you do.
ironic.
Yeah. The most nonchalant, like, follow me, but yeah.
But yeah, it's a weird feedback loop now where people are like judging themselves based on this system that they totally have no control over. I mean, it always baffles me that you have a certain amount of control over your life, right? But everybody always looks to things that are outside of their control to give them something, right? To boost their ego or to show their worth. And social media is probably one of the worst things because most people don't even know you know how it works. I mean, in the sense that you put stuff out there and it may be the most brilliant thing ever, and yet no one sees it.
No one sees it.
And
No one sees it.
and so then the weird thing is that we're all hamsters on the wheel, but we're not driving ourselves at that point. We're driving Instagram. We're helping Instagram more than we're helping ourselves.
Of course we are. And I think the problem is that you have to, once again, determine the good from the bad of it. Social media can be really great. I don't want to rag on and say it's bad, but put it from this, I use it from my aspect. People see I post something. And for me, I'm all about, once again, media, art, history, things I find intriguing, I'll post about. Mostly my
Hmm.
travels, because I want people to say, like, there's a world out there. You should try to get out and see this world. You should try to make every effort to do that and really broaden your horizons. I think that's some of the positive way. People who like to do makeup tutorials or back to fitness or certain aspects. I think those are great things to have out there. There's nothing wrong with that. But what becomes a problem is that you see certain people travel and you're like, oh my God, I can't afford to do that. Okay, you may not be able to afford to do that now, but maybe it's something you could put on your bucket list down the road. Don't feel like you have to always do everything someone else does. I would get friends to get envious of me. They're like, oh my God, you went here, you went there. And I'm like, yeah, I said, but there's different ways you can do that. And then I turned into a business. A side business of mine is just doing travel for a lot of my friends. I'm like, well, I can do this for you. This is where I stayed. And, let me help you out with this and that. And so it was a wealth of information I was giving the world to say that these things are possible for you to make happen for yourself. And you can do that and feel comfortable knowing that there's a world outside of the four walls that you have every day around you, which sometimes people feel like they don't think that it's possible. And the
Yeah.
scrolling is really bad. You got to realize you got to put yourself on mute sometimes. I love a good travel blog. I love a good cooking blog. I love fitness, but after about 30 minutes, I'm like, okay, I gotta walk away.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't want to keep doing it, but you can't get into this habit of doing it over. I love my best friend. I love him to death. He will be on TikTok for almost an hour to 2 hours. And I'm like, what the?
Wow.
And I'm
That's a
like,
lot.
I'm like, you could be doing something else and not do that. Like
Hmm.
just minimize yourself. I'm saying don't cut it out, but just minimize yourself from it. Take a little bit
Right.
of time, enjoy it, and see it, and then get out into the world. Say, for instance, you see something. I see something sometimes. I'm like, wow, that person went to Prague. Oh my God, that's such a good trip. Let me investigate that for myself and look into that. Maybe it may not happen this year or next year, but let me look into that. It seems like such a cool thing, and translate it to something that can happen outside of the digital space that you're saying.
Yeah, and you mentioned, I think travel is one of the greatest ways, especially if you're a younger person, to open your eyes to
Absolutely.
the world. And I think the unfortunate thing is we've got it as a society, we've got it flipped, right? So
We
old
do.
people get to travel and young people don't get to travel when it really should be the other way, because
Should.
if it was the other way, then I think that there would be a lot more understanding in the world,
Oh,
because you would see for yourself, right?
mhm.
How what the world is like. And I think people get trapped into this thing about travel where they say, because they want, when they travel, they want to be, first class accommodations all the way across the board. And
Mhm.
it's like, you can still go someplace. I mean, think about your budget, and you still have to eat and everything. You
Yeah.
probably eat out at home. So rather than, they just have to get a little money to get yourself somewhere, and you
Yeah.
just be doing the same thing that you'd be doing at home. It's just,
People, budget
um,
travel exists.
yeah,
It's not a fantasy. And you can still have a great time. I've done it myself. I've done high class travel. I've done budget travel, and it's still been a great experience. Well, not always a great experience, but ideally, it's a learning experience. Listen, it's a learning experience too. It's
yeah,
like I've been delayed in the airport and have to be shut and wait 4 hours, but it's all an experience. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about the experience and journey that you went on to do that. Yes, you have some travel delays here and there, but maybe stay at a lower hotel here, but in the next city you go, you save up and do a nicer hotel. That's
yeah.
fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Mix it
Uh,
up.
the weird thing, I talked to, and I'm blanking on his name now, but I talked to a guy, and now that we've got to where we can, where it's more acceptable to work from home, where
Mhm.
I think before COVID it was less acceptable. During COVID, he actually got rid of his apartment, and then, just because Airbnb was having all these deals, he just lived in different places during COVID,
That's amazing.
and traveled around, and, like, because he didn't have to be in one place.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating. I'm like, really? It was, and this has been a while ago. I talked to him, probably a couple of years now, but I was like, that is just so fascinating that you had kind of the foresight to say,
Mhm.
I don't need to spend my money the way I'm spending it. I can
No,
spend it the way I want to spend it,
absolutely.
and be in other places. Like, he stayed in San Francisco, he stayed in Oregon, I think it was. But anyway, he went to all these places and basically worked from there and
Yeah.
lived from there, and just took his rent money and everything, and applied it in that way. Now we're out of COVID, so prices are different, because at that time they were trying to get people to come. But
Absolutely. Yeah.
so he got a deal, but he was, thinking. But even now, you can probably, I mean, maybe you go places that aren't as, touristy, and
Yeah.
it still can give you a sense of the world, because you're going to be in places that, maybe aren't as popular,
Absolutely.
but maybe it will become popular if you do a little
Yeah.
research. I mean,
You got to pick the off seasons. I always tell people off seasons are always going to be your best friend.
mhm,
Going to Italy during the summertime, probably not the best time to go. It's probably hot
mhm,
as well. But find different times to do that and find a flexibility. If you can work remote for a week, like for myself personally, I could work up to 3 weeks remote and not be in my office. And I'm like,
mhm.
oh, I go work in another office, and that's fine. And that works. You find your limitations, and work from there. And just what I'm saying, just make it your own. Just make it your own. Do I ever feel like you're alone in the process? There's always someone that done it. Follow people who do it. I think there's a channel about people who work remote and go to Bali and everywhere else,
Right.
and know how to budget travel and know how to get, the deals on the airlines.
Mhm.
Do it for a little bit and see if it works for you. It may not work for you, and you're like, hey, I tried it, didn't like it. All right, fine. And that's
Yeah.
okay.
Well,
Just saying.
and I would encourage people. I mean, if you're, especially if you're younger and your parents don't
Mhm.
mind, don't just leave your stuff with them and take off. I mean, you don't have to have a place for your stuff
That is
that
true.
you're paying for. Try
Yeah.
to, I mean, even if you paid, like, give me a corner of the basement to put all my stuff for a while, because I'm not
Right.
going to be living anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of options out there, and I think that they'd be, you need to take advantage of them. I mean, this is the time, because you'll be able to travel later, maybe in better circumstances, depending on your career arcs and so forth. But
Yeah.
you're never going to have that kind of, experience, because the experiences are different. I mean, I don't think people realize that as you age and so forth, even if it's the exact same experience, it's different when you're younger and when you're
Oh, yeah.
older.
Yes, yes, yes. I
The
totally get that.
perspective is all different.
I do in my 20s, it might be the same things I do. I'm in my 40s now. I'm like, if I wouldn't do those things, certain
Mhm.
levels, like, I'm not going to a hostel. It's just not my thing. But, I mean, there's some people who still do that, and that's fine. Me and my partner are very different on this aspect. Like, he's more of like a bohemian hipster and do whatever he wants to do. I'm more like, I need a nice place to stay, and I want to make sure it's good. And then, then scamp on different little excursions along the way and kind of mix it up a little bit. But you just got to find those balances and know
Yeah.
that everything is different for different people, and be safe about it too. Obviously, try to different places
Right.
about your safety, but always read up on stuff, check up on everything. Do your research. Do your research. I'm reiterating that. Do your research
Yeah. Do research.
and
Yeah.
make it great. And I can tell you firsthand, I have not been disappointed. Maybe only one trip that was very horrible, but that's probably one out of 10 or 20 trips I've done. I've never looked back and like I didn't enjoy the experience.
Right. Yeah. Even if you get caught in the rain or something, it
Yeah,
still can be fun. I
yeah.
know my wife and I went to New York, and we're in New York City walking around, and you would think in New York City that you could get out of the rain easily. No, when it started pouring down rain, you're walking down the street.
You gotta
I
figure
guess you
that
could go into a business, but then they don't. You gotta, they want you to
out. They
do
might
something.
shoot you out afterwards. Like,
Yeah, you're soaking wet.
yeah,
It was just one of those. We were within a couple of blocks of the hotel, and we just got drenched, and it was fun and not fun all at the same time. It's fun now looking back at it, but at the time we were like, oh my
at the
gosh.
moment you're like, this is miserable. Like,
Like there's not even any awnings. My gosh, this
no, the city is not
is
refuge.
terrible. Yeah, and I didn't even think it would rain that hard in New York, but it did. I mean, it was crazy thunderstorm. But anyway, uh, kind of back a little bit to the virtual part of things. So the interesting thing to me, and you have a back. I'm a cartoon character, and you have a background from a Marvel movie, and so now I think we're eking our way into the realm of that we can portray things that aren't real as real, and so now you have to be incredibly discernible in watching things now because it's so easy to make things that
Oh,
aren't
yeah.
real.
I mean, also you can tell from the background. You can tell it's better. I mean,
Right,
unless
right now, give it 2 years.
that's very true. AI has changed it. You were absolutely correct on that. But yeah, I wouldn't. I think backgrounds and these things are always nice. It's kind of fun. Like you're in a Zoom meeting at work. It's like kind of have a nice backgrounds. You have your
Yeah,
work things, this and that. But you're totally right. You have to be careful. AI, once again, good and bad. I had a podcast about this. It's just how you use it and how you handle it. It's just you have to be smart about it. But it's scary, as you said, because it will get to a point where like you will not be able to tell the difference. I mean, I think of
hmm
certain platforms. I think when I use my software editing for a podcast, Riverside, they have like an AI section where you can like AI your voice or something. And I'm just like,
hmm
oh my goodness, like you don't even have to talk half the time. I'm like, wait, there's a bot that
right.
like so you gotta be careful about it. Yes.
It's gonna be we're on the kind of the precipice, I suppose, of this. Even though everybody loves to use the word AI and so forth, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we're not into what I would call real artificial intelligence.
No.
We're at the infancy of it, right?
Yes.
And so if we keep going down this path, it becomes then what? I mean, how are people going to cope with our 20th century skills in this 21st century environment where you can create things out of nothing to
Yeah.
look like they're something. Like, I mean, I don't know if I love to watch these silly movie trailers that people make with AI where they'll take
Oh
Star
yes.
Wars reimagined as a 50s
My God, I
movie
hate
or
those because I get very excited because I'm such a big Marvel and Star Wars fan and stuff like that. So I'm like, oh, this is new. And I'm like, oh, great. It's not.
yeah.
But it looks like you said, it looks so real. I'm like, wait, they really? I'm like, oh no. So,
I just recently I there's a movie coming out with Jack Black called Dear Santa, I think is the name of it. And I saw an ad, but not an ad for it. I saw it in somebody's feed,
Mhm.
and I thought this is a fake movie poster. That was my first inclination, was to think that this isn't real. Somebody's done a really really good job of putting Jack Black as Santa. Actually, he's not playing Santa. I'll give you spoilers, but
Mhm.
he's playing the devil, playing Santa. And I thought, well, that's sounds like a fun movie. I wonder if they'll really make it, because they did a really good job on this poster, and it's real. It's a real
It's a
movie.
real movie. I mean, with
Yeah.
Jack Black, I wouldn't be surprised. So that makes a lot of sense.
But when I saw it, I'm like, that's not real. That was my first inclination. And so there's so many of these things now, because there are people who do fake movie posters. It's all, to me at this point, it's an art form. They've done such a good job with them, that, and
Oh, absolutely.
they look so good. I mean,
Yeah.
this is art. But now we have to discern. And I was just like, I can't believe that I mean, I went to I think I went to the good side of assuming that it was not real. But now I'm keep questioning myself. Is that really a thing, or is this not a thing? And that's now. And so I can't imagine what's going to happen in the future,
Oh, God.
as we go along, you know?
I used to think of I used to make this joke about Skynet, from Terminator. I was like,
Hmm.
Skynet's going live. It's like
Yeah.
it's gonna take it. I mean, not that I don't think Skynet really happened. Hopefully, but yeah, it's one of those things where, like, you're right. We're in the infancy and we're getting started. But once again, it's about. I tell people, don't be scared of it. It's embrace yourself and understand it and learn it. It's not going to be easy, of course, but I think the more you're aware about it, and back to my famous word of research, figure it out and understand as much as you can. It's not quantum physics. It's not quantum mechanics. I mean, once again, if you understand that, then you're a genius, and that's awesome. Good for you. But you just understand the basics of it and understand how that works. And then I don't know if it gets to the point where we can, you know, detect the AI detector versus a life model decoy somewhere. We're not at Westworld yet, like creating
Right. Westworld.
hopefully we're not there yet. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just make yourself understanding of it and be open to it and don't be too scared of it. I think the scarcity and the unknown is what makes it a harder thing to accept for some people because it's something that's so out of what they may know or what they may understand. And I mean, we've had training at work on it, which is crazy because now it's like we can use it at work. We can only use it a certain way at work. You can't overuse it. And it's like, so what are you telling us? At some point,
Right.
our jobs will be I won't say obsolete, but like it's gonna to the point where like maybe it's supposed to make things a little more automated, but I also feel like that's part of your job to do certain things. So like, you're just gonna talk to the computer for everything, but we use the computer for everything. So once again, it's a whole catch 22 over and again. It just kind of comes all in one big.
Well, it may be that these jobs that are being kind of usurped a little bit by this technology, it may be that job becomes the person becomes the one who has to discern, because it's not just going to come from within, it's going to come
Yeah,
from outside. And so now you need to have somebody who's an expert to say,
mhm.
what is this? Are we looking at something that's legitimate? I just think of all of the phishing things and spam, and I mean it's gonna get to legal documents, and you're gonna receive legal documents that are fake, that say you owe a bunch of money,
Yep.
and somebody's gonna have to be there to say, no, this is not real. And we're we're on the precipice of that. I mean, it's all these things are going to happen, because any technology that is good for people can be used to be bad for people, and we just have we have to be diligent.
Impossible. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm seeing
Yeah.
that.
Now, I just had a thought. We kind of tying some of this together and wrapping up here, is that wouldn't it be interesting to think, especially, I mean, the problem with VR is it's never really taken off in
Yeah.
its current incarnation because of the headsets and stuff. I think once they get the headsets down to where you don't feel like you're strapping a baby to your face or something that you can
Well, is
people
the
will buy into it a little bit more.
but is I didn't I Apple come out with one the Vision is the Vision Pro? I didn't never tried it, but
Yeah, Vision Pro, but
is that
it's
good or
still
is it
kind
not?
of bulky, I think.
Oh, okay.
The bulk of it is what I think turns people off. If it was just a pair of glasses, then people would be way more, into it but you have to put this thing that's kind of heavy. But the do you think there will be people who basically go around like you could say, I want to travel without traveling, and then you have people in different places who become your, wear something like you wear something, you become the person, kind of
Yeah,
there
yeah,
was a movie about this with robots, but I mean, it could be with people too, I suppose,
I
where you're like
think
walking around a bazaar somewhere, and
yeah.
but you're the one watching it.
There
It'd be
was
wild.
I don't know if you remember it was a well, I don't even think it launched or went off because they said VR was hard, but I remember Snapchat created something called spectacles, and I
Hmm.
think what
Yeah.
happened was you would wear the glasses, and it would be like your live Snapchat without your phone, but you wear the
Hmm.
glasses, you could kind of I don't know if you probably couldn't live record, but you could take pictures. So I think they were trying that aspect of saying like if you're traveling or wherever you are, if someone wants to know what's going on, they wear these eyeglasses and you do.
Right.
But I think Google Map kind of does it in a way because if I don't know an area, I go to Google Map. I mean, obviously they drive around with the cars and do all the things.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I would just want to see it for myself. I mean, maybe it's just me. Like, I mean, I would like to get an understanding of a neighborhood, understand certain aspects, but I still want to be able to just physically be there.
Oh
I do,
yeah. No.
I do
Totally.
understand some people can't be there for either certain reasons or the case may be, but
Right.
I wouldn't want to take away from the aspect of actually really being there if you can
That
avoid it.
now we tied into celebrity, right? So like we
Well,
say we have celebrities who pay people to go be normal. Like I remember the story about Michael Jackson basically closed down a grocery store because he just wanted to have the uh the experience of going shopping because he couldn't, right? He was so famous that he couldn't even leave without security and everything. So he closed down a grocery store and he literally brought, I think he brought staff and so forth, but he brought people in to be other shoppers, and they spent an afternoon grocery shopping.
hmm.
Isn't that wild to think about? I
It's
hear that
wild, but I
story.
also I get it, but also it is I guess a little different because that's like LA. This is where it's LA versus New York. Because in New York, celebrities come in somewhere, no one gives two shits. To be honest, they're just like, oh, no one. Okay, great. Maybe a little bit of frenzy here and there, but nothing like it is in LA. Because I've seen it in LA, and I'm like, oh my god, like it's intense. Here, it's just
Yeah.
kind of like you can see Holly Berry or Brad Pitt, whoever, go into a store, and you're like, oh, cool. I think I seen Adam Brody walk around one time at the museum. Awesome guy. I
Yeah.
was like, it's not a big deal. But yeah, I get that because I think you do lose a sense of yourself in that world. And I think also there's a difference between being an artist and being a celebrity. I think a lot of people don't want to be a celebrity. They want to be an artist. They want to do
Right. Right.
and create the stuff and make it happen. I mean, it was crazy because we just had a few weeks ago a Timothy Chalamet lookalike contest that almost got shut down because there's so many people who look like Timothy Chalamet actually showed up. And it was just freaking hilarious how sometimes it just changes from time to time. I think he got a rile out of it, but I thought it was hilarious. I mean, that maybe came out for that, but it it's really interesting. But I think you want to be able to still be yourself in that aspect, but that is hard too. But I think in that world it does blend because it's almost like I want this, but do I really want this? And that's
Hmm.
tough. You're gonna give up something in the contract
Right.
of doing that, and that's very hard. In the case of Michael Jackson, is Michael Jackson. That man can't go any. I mean, rest in peace, but he couldn't go anywhere.
Right. Yeah.
Michael
He
Jackson,
couldn't go anywhere. Yeah. It was.
Cher or
He was.
Mariah, like these divas we know for years. Those the kind of
Mhm.
names. Yeah, you realize at that many years stage in that career, that's not happening. And you have to be okay
Yeah.
with it, sadly. But it's still kind of it's kind of sad if you think about it, though.
Yeah. It is sad. It's sad for folks who can't have any kind of normalcy in
Yeah.
their lives.
Mm.
But well, let's wrap it up here, Dak. So
Yeah.
Dak, the voice of reason. Where can people find you besides Strawberry Dak, which I'll put back
Um,
up there?
Strawberry Deck is my main one. I also have a website under Flora, so it's Flora Travel, which is also the link in my Strawberry Deck Instagram. So any travel needs or anything that you're interested for travel, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm always down to have a conversation about travel and to educate people on the aspects of global travel. As I've not spent where myself yet, but I'm on the verge of getting all the way around the world. That's going to be my goal.
Oh, cool. That's fantastic.
But yeah, that's kind of a place you can find me. But other than that, my podcast is Comfortable Being Uncomfortable. I probably should plug that. We wrapped up our second season, so that has wrapped up for the year, this year, 2024, and then we will start back up in February next year with some new guests and
Yeah.
new things as well. So I'll take a break for the holidays, be with family and friends, and then I ramp up again in the new year.
You're leading a very what do you want to call it? A very balanced life by doing
Trying
that.
to, trying to. The key word is trying.
Yeah.
Easy. I am trying to. I love what I do, but I think it's always good to kind of keep balance wherever you go.
Yeah. Well, everyone, listen to Comfortable Being Uncomfortable. Go buy Strawberry Dak on Instagram, and I mean, it's great talking to you again,
Yeah, you as well.
and we will catch everybody again next time. And enjoy yourself. And Dak, I'm going to call you the voice of reason from now on.
I like that. I can stick with that. I'm okay with that.
All right. Hang on just a second.
All right.